OK, well, let's see if it does. Let's see if he makes the 800. We'll find out soon enough. But let's move to London, because it's one of the world's most populous cities and one of the wealthiest. But it hasn't been one of the tallest. Skyscrapers remain relatively rare here, clustered in just a few areas. But now, despite the recession, London's skyline seems to be going up. As Vincent Dowd reports, some people approve, but others very definitely do not.
I think it's too high, and it's too close to the main road. This is another thing.
Do you not think it's an attractive building?
It's attractive, but not for where it is.
There are areas like the Elephant and Castle in cities around the world, big on social problems, seeking a different future. In this part of London, the new Strata building, 148 metres and 43 stories of it, is part of the regeneration master plan. OK, it's a pretty spectacular flat. Talk me round what we can see, Justin.
The building is orientated to look directly in line with St Paul's, looking over the Millennium Bridge. You can see the river from here, through the West End.
Justin Black of developers Brookfield needn't worry if some local residents remain unimpressed. Strata pretty much sold off-plan 3 years ago. In fact, a quarter of the development is affordable housing for local people. Of the private flats, this penthouse is one of a handful still on the market.
OK, this is a 3-bedroom duplex. Everything's open plan. The whole apartment becomes a fire-protected area rather than just a hallway. The easiest sort of example of that is Monica and Rachel's apartment in Friends, where you walk straight into their kitchen. You'd never been able to do that in London before.
High-rise living used to be something few in Britain aspired to. Justin Black says that's changed.
Land is a limited resource, and it has to be used effectively and efficiently. Most people associate living in a tall building in the UK with 1960s and 1970s social affordable housing, where the buildings weren't managed properly. So what will happen is I think there will be a further emergence of high-rise living.
The London skyline climbed only slowly. For 2.5 centuries, much the tallest building was the one which even today dictates the alignment of strata, though it stands far away northwards across the Thames. St Paul's Cathedral no longer dominates London. Since the 1930s, views of it have been protected. Even then, the cathedral's surveyor to the fabric worried about the capital's growth. Today, his successor, Martin Stancliffe, says tall buildings are a fact of life, but one we need to think about more clearly.
I'm not quite sure whether we've got really accustomed to the fact that tall buildings do have an influence on the places that they're set in, the structure of the communities around them. When you get spasmodic buildings, like the Strata building and other buildings, then of course tall buildings begin to structure the whole of the Greater London.
The Council for Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, based in Chicago, defines today's super tall buildings as 300 metres or more. There are about 50 in the world, and in London, strata's not even half that. Antony Wood is the Council's English-born director.
We need to start densifying our cities, and densifying our cities is not just about bringing in new office or hotel functions. It's about people living in the city in a more sustainable fashion and reducing suburban spread. So although the Strata building is a new and exciting building for London, I think we're going to see more of those buildings, and we need to see more of those buildings. Cities around the world, some of them have almost 100% of people living in high-rise buildings.
Halfway between St Paul's and Strata is Rupel Street, the perfect two-storey, brick-built Victorian streetscape. Writer and architectural historian Alan Powers.
It's quite a narrow street, and the houses come right up to the pavement edge, and they're 2 stories high. Maybe 60 years ago, before the war, people have said this is slums, we must tear it down. Now I think it's a very attractive place where people want to live, and it imitates what the rich had, which was their own front door onto the street and a bit of space at the back.
Building high seems a perfectly rational reaction to pressure on space and growing populations.
People like to be on the ground. That's another lesson we learnt the hard way. We have to interact with other people, and streets are a very good way of doing that, particularly as we're beginning to push the car back.
2 years from now, London gets a building twice as tall as Strata. The Shard will have 88 floors. Aesthetically, a lot is riding on Renzo Piano's 310-metre glass tower. As once with St Paul's, people expect not mere height, but beauty. If Piano delivers, it could do much to shape the debate on tall buildings and their purposes, and not just in the UK.
Vincent Dowd reporting. Well, with us, our panel still. Our guests, Doug Saunders, skyscrapers, good, evil, passé?
You know, when I first lived in London a quarter century ago, it seemed it was fairly easy to say evil, because the tall buildings that had been built had sort of wrecked the squat urban organic unity of central London. But I have to say, since then, there's been a real change in how tall buildings are done. I think things like Norman Foster's Gherkin and so on have shown that you can use tall buildings almost to enhance that sense of medieval hodgepodge that had been London's.
And you're a bit of a fan of the Gherkin. You took your son up.
He was obsessed with it. It really taught me that it had become sort of a symbolic focal point that people are drawn to in London. And for his 7th birthday, I managed to twist some elbows and get him up to the top for dinner, which normally is only reserved for employees of the insurance company there. And I wish it was open to everybody up there, because it's spectacular.
What about you, Carmilla?
I love the Gherkin, and I love the look of the Shard. And I do wish it was open for everyone. I think if you're a building that tall, we should all have a viewing platform. But the thing with is that architecture, I think there was a time where taller was better or more exciting, and now there have been so many developments in terms of what you're doing aesthetically, that height is no longer, in aesthetic terms or in exciting terms, what I look for mainly.
So is London behind the curve or ahead of it by going tall again?
I think probably behind the curve. I mean, there's nothing wrong with tall, but it has to be tall plus something else. I mean, the Gherkin is not thrilling because it's tall; it's the shape of it. It's what they've done with it.
So it's wonderful. Okay. So it's the full picture rather than just the height. Okay. Well, thanks both very much. You are listening to The World Today here